This is the spiritual discussion program. Oh. Just saying hello, listeners. This is Bless Radio. This is the spiritual discussion program, and it's 6 p.m. on Tuesday. I'm Saad in Southeast London in Bromley, and with me is Gregory. Gregory, are you there?
Yes, yeah, in Brussels.
Okay, good. And the weather here in London right now is dark. It's been, I will say, overcast today, raining a lot, a bit windy as well. I think there's a couple of storms they have named. They're coming from, let's say, the Atlantic or that side. So, how is it in Brussels, Gregory?
Just the same thing that you just mentioned.
Okay. Welcome, listeners. As I said, this is a spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushi. And we have a new topic every week for discussion. The topic tonight is the nature beings. The nature beings. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. And call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushi is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we're discussing tonight is the nature beings. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Gregory, the topic title, as I said, is the nature beings. So I just thought we will look at, like I usually do in the dictionary, what I know we normally try to look at the whole title, but I just want to break it into the two words, the main words, nature and beings, just to start our discussion, and then we can continue it. And I know there's much more we need to explore tonight with this subject. So the first word is nature. And in the dictionary, it says nature means the phenomena of the physical world collectively, including plants, animals, the landscape, and other features and products of the earth, as opposed to humans or human creations. And the given example in a sentence, the breathtaking beauty of nature. So, Gregory, I just want to ask you this definition of nature. I know it may not be perfect, but is there anything you could say is, let's say, we can rely on?
Well, first, thanks for this question. But before one proceeds, there is a need to provide the basis for answers to questions. At the beginning, you pointed to one's intuition. At the same time, there is a pointer to the work in the light of truth, the Grail message. Therefore, as a framework, as a beginning, one should stress very carefully, thoughtfully, that in here, the endeavor is to explain everything in the light of truth. There are two key nouns there: light and truth. That which is of light is generally, or must be referred to as, that which can have form, or that which can be used in creating forms, or more precisely, structural forms. And those structural forms of light one must refer to as substantiality. Therefore, when there's any discussion, you say, oh, can I substantiate? It means, can I put in structures, durable structures? Which structures can be used to hold that which is discussed or that which is constructed? So on the right hand, one is talking about substantiality when one refers to light. On the left hand, complementing substantiality is truth. For that which is true yesterday, true today, and true tomorrow, it only means it does not change in its states or its form. It remains the same. It's eternally the same. So our answers is an endeavor to construct, that means from our building, looking or using the structures, the structural forms of substantiality, and the truth, which truth itself is the law. On this basis, one can then move forward. And looking at that, you have just described what nature is. It is a description. Which description can be helpful? What one must realize, one cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater. One has to examine that which you yourself have just described in the light of truth. When such is tenable, then it is precise, it is usable. On that, one may stand because such structures are durable.
Thank you. What I understood from what you said, Gregory, is that the description of the word nature I got from the dictionary, it's, let's say, partially correct, but it's not the whole picture. And for us to have the whole picture or wider picture, we need to consider, well, as you mentioned, the structure. You mentioned light and truth, so let's say, or substantiality even, I should say, where, you know, how these things have formed. And I would say in the dictionary, they obviously they don't go into too much explanation, but this is what our discussion is here. The spiritual discussion is we go behind these words and go behind the concepts. So that's what we are doing now in our discussion. You know, to get that picture. They say the bigger picture. So again, to say the topic for tonight is nature beings. In the dictionary, it was pointing to the earthly, well, let's say physical world. It's what is how is highlighted in this dictionary. I'll just repeat the definition, Gregory. It says the phenomena of the physical world collectively, including plants, animals, and landscape, and other features and products of the earth, as opposed to humans or human creations. So let's just try to dissect that definition about nature. I know, well, I'll just say it anyway. Are human beings outside of nature? Because that's what it seems to in this dictionary definition.
In the dictionary definition, you mentioned nature and the domain, the extent is tied to the earthly. However, the earthly is also affected by the moon. The moon is not on the earth. The sun also plays a role on the activities on the earth, yet your definition didn't talk about the sun. The other planets in the solar system also have a role to play, their impact on the earth, yet the dictionary definition didn't mention that. The environment, the greater environment other than the earth, also has impact on the earth. Even stars we cannot see, all these have a cumulative effect on the earth, yet the dictionary did not mention that. Now, one can understand why one said it's partial. It hasn't taken. It has looked at what is visible within the earthly environment, not what surrounds it, or also those things that have impact. It hasn't taken that into consideration. Neither has it taken the human personality into consideration. So, and that is why one accepted it as being partial, but hasn't looked into other areas which I just enumerated.
Thank you for that, Gregory. So, by just your answer, I can clearly see that when we talk about nature, it doesn't include the earthly world. It's beyond that, just by definition. I mean, if I just use the word universe, let's call it a physical universe, just for the sake of simple conversation. Obviously, you would say nature made this universe, or it came through a process of nature, let's say. That is, or let's say science and humanity would say, yes, that some process resulted in this earth and this physical universe being formed. And if that's the case, then nature must be affecting the whole universe, not simply the earth. So I think that this definition, it didn't mention earth, actually just said physical world, but the pointing was to plants and animals. So it was like, which we are more familiar on the earth rather than other places. So yes, it was, it did mention product of the earth. So it is a bit limited. It's quite limited in its definition, I must say. But we obviously realize just with our experiences that nature can't just include the earth only. So now, Gregory, I just want to move on to the next word, beings. And somehow in the meaning, I should have really checked other dictionary definitions. It says beings is existence in the dictionary, or the nature or essence of a person. So again, it's like pointing to human being again, existence of human beings. So, which somehow, as if there are no other beings. So I'm finding this dictionary meanings very, very narrow and very limiting, if I'm honest. And that is not what we are discussing tonight. So let's try to make it as one word, nature beings. Let's look at it together, nature beings. So just, Gregory, can I start with the question? I already mentioned it, but I'll say it again. Are human beings nature beings?
When you look at the two compound expressions you just mentioned, human beings, nature beings, these are two different categories. One that is human, the other one which points to a human personality, and then nature beings, which points to nature and its activities. One, it is right for one to say that the human personality, which is referred to as a human being, interacts with nature. So these are two different things. The human personality interacts with nature, or with the definition we call nature, or the domain we call nature, or the extent, to use a big bowl to have that concept. Nature is not only a concept, as many may think or may consider. Nature is factual. Nature is real. The effect of nature that we are able to perceive is only a part of what one may refer to as reciprocal activities. For when we interact with nature, we perceive reciprocal activities.
Thank you again for that answer, Gregory. You have sort of got my next question already there, which is, are nature beings real? And you said nature is real, which I think nobody will deny that. Some people might think, oh, nature beings, I'm not sure if they're real. And what it also reminds me, Gregory, of is, as we know, in ancient cultures or ancient peoples, let's say Romans, Greeks, but that's just one. There are many all over the world, basically, believed in, let's say, so-called gods with a little g, and who were controlling nature, or let me just, let me say that. And Gregory, I just want to go back to the dictionary again, because, these things are considered as legends and myths, like stories, fairy stories, not really true, fictional stories in today's world, let's say. But in the ancient times, people believed that these things existed, and I just want to refer to the meaning of myth, Gregory, in the dictionary. Here, it says a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people, explaining natural or social phenomena, typically involving supernatural beings or events. And they give example of ancient Celtic myths. And then Gregory, in the second part of the, let's say there are like 5 definitions of the word myth. The second one says a widely held but false belief or idea. So first part is saying traditional, ancient, early history of man, the way they believe that, and then which involves supernatural beings. And then now it says, the second definition, widely held but false belief or idea. And I think this is just various ways that we use the word myth in today's language. It even, I'll just say one more because there are 5 different definitions. Well, yeah, I'll just say the last one. An exaggerated or idealized conception of a person or thing. So, Gregory, just from these 3 different definitions, you can see the if you use it in different contexts, you can get a totally different idea of this myth. So, so my question from that, Gregory, is: you said that nature beings are real, or but maybe that was in the past, that's what people believed. In today's world, it is not at all considered real. So, can you explain when you say that nature beings are real? How do you mean that?
Again, thanks for asking these particular questions. To look at on the other side, a very simple question is, how many people can see their thoughts? How many people can hold their thoughts in their hands? Does it mean their way of thinking has no impact on them? If their way of thinking or if their thoughts have impact on them, are those thoughts real? To be able to perceive that which is real, a homogeneous type is required. Therefore, one cannot be talking about seeing something of a different type, of a different substance. How many people can see sound? How many people can hear smell? How many people can see smell? These are different types. And to be able to perceive them, that which is or that which has been granted to the human personality on the earthly is required. Those are the senses, the physical senses, and what can be magnified by the works of man to make them easily perceptible. But you cannot see sound, yet it is real. That is one side. It must be acknowledged that the world in which we now live in, many take their seats on the so-called scientific arguments, albeit the precise intellectual arguments, in the sense only what is perceptible to the physical senses is real. Yet their thoughts have an impact. Their thoughts are real. They cannot hold it. So one has to look at these things very carefully. Because many have their seats on the so-called scientific arena, and a few others on the so-called religious information or writings passed down, the authenticity of which many do not know or have not tried to verify. These pieces of information are taken in without further examination. As is well known, all of science has its seats in the intellect. That means science looks at expression, not impression. And in their examination or seeking for evidence, they do experiment and build models and use these models to explain. That means the expressions they have now taken and have built a model, they use one for explanation as a basis for explanation. That means the forms which they themselves have observed These external forms is what they rely on. That which lies behind the form, that which is of intuition, many have not examined. The third part I wish to go into is that very clearly man realizes before he awoke here on earth, there had been animals. Even before the animals, there have been plants. Even before the plants, there have been the elements. Not to talk of nature, which, like the sun, in which hydrogen and they are burning, the other planets have been there, many more. They have been there. This is not arguable because it is a fact, it is factual. But the question remains, who does the upbuilding of these bodies? Who does the upbuilding, the maintenance of the sun, of the planets, of the physical universe, of the elements on earth, of the plants, of the animals, before man awoke here on earth? They had been there. Those who are responsible for that particular activity in their various kinds, those ones are what generally in the world of matter one refers to as nature beings.
Thank you so much for this answer, Gregory, and explanation. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Aprushi. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is the nature beings. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1, Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. You go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show the next day, or from also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space Grail message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is the nature beings. And of course you can listen to our previous shows as well. And also we're broadcasting on Zeno, that's zeno.fm/Bless Radio 1. And Zeno is spelled ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. Again, the number 1. Gregory, the universe is a very big place, and you just mentioned just now about nature. You could say building this universe that we live in, and so many other things, not just us, of course, living on the earth, but the whole, you could call it, what's within the universe. The nature beings have brought that about. And in a way, we don't really know anything about that. In science, like you've already mentioned, they talk about certain things, but let's say the processes and so-called Big Bang theory and so on, trying to explain it, but there's no consideration of any beings involved. It's some sort of process only. Elements, you mentioned elements and things, just almost like a chemical reaction, and then somehow this has happened. But no mention of beings. And then we have, as I mentioned earlier, Gregory, these myths, as they're known, of the people of the past, ancient peoples who believed in these nature beings, or they even call them gods, who are like rulers or have power over nature. And then you're wondering what has happened, that science has overtaken that and basically almost, well, I don't know what word to use, demolish this old beliefs completely. And here we are today talking about it. And we've told that it's something real, and most people consider it just a fiction. So let's try and explore that further. And I think maybe we can start, Gregory, from what we know of these, beliefs of the ancient peoples, you can say. If you just look even not much further in the recent past, let's say the Red Indians of America who are still around, and maybe they might be in small in number, but you could say do a rain dance, or they pray for rain, or that's just one example. So they, let's say, praying to a god, if you can say, a little g, for the weather, let's say the weather for that. So what I want to ask on that, Gregory, that are those nature beings that they are calling on in this, what they want, what they're praying for, you can say.
Again, thanks for these questions. And when one observes another personality in their interaction with the forces of nature and in nature, it only means that personality, to some extent, is conscious of these forces in nature. For if one is not conscious of these forces in nature, how can you then put yourself together to focus and to ask for support or assistance? Many a time in the past, in their simplicity, for what had happened, the tribes you just mentioned had not given up their intrinsic connections due to the way they lived, what they ate, which helped to preserve the radiations that came out of them, and in their fineness, not all of them, but some of them were able to perceive of the of the existence of these beings. A simple instance is that when you shout and there is nothing which is solid enough, you will not have a bounce back of the sound you have made. That bounce back is you call an echo. So when in their radiations, to some extent they are able to control due to their inner self, they are able to ask for help intuitively, which asking of help is expressed in words that you and I can perceive with our physical ears. But what goes on deep within them, we ourselves are not sure, but they know what they are doing. They are able to speak the language which these specific beings understand. For it is the human personality that must understand or that must struggle to understand the language which nature speaks to him in his interactions with nature. That being the case, these personalities were able to communicate their simple requests when they are in dire need. And of course, these beings, some of whom are in charge of the air, some whose activities are with fire, some activities or their tasks are on the earth, solid earth. Those of the solid earth, they have come to recognize as gnomes. Their activity is the upbuilding, maintenance, and subsequent dissolution when the time comes where that structure which they had put up is no more viable or is no more durable in the sense it has completed its cycle. These beings are the ones who help in the disintegration of what initially they had integrated through union and alliances. These tribes were able to observe of this, and in their fastness and in the knowledge they had about these beings, they were able to ask for help. And in humility, these beings, as long as these requests for help are in accordance with the laws of nature, these beings graciously acceded, granted these requests, because their area of activity is sometimes for those of the air and the wind and in the sky. They help to make sure we have the weather patterns. So the weather patterns are not arbitrary. They also help with the deep earth in rearranging the structure of the earth, in also with flowers. So what will we find? That's within nature, tied here to the earthly domain. It is very well ordered. It is not arbitrary. And should man in dire need makes that urgent yet simple request to those in charge, those whose activities are concerned with these bodies, those who had been put there through substantiality, it means they have forms and structures. Those who have been put there in the wisdom of the Almighty, which expresses itself in the laws of nature, which already gives you the strong impression intuitively of light and of truth. Of light and of truth, in which these beings swing unconditionally. They are able to be of assistance. One should not look down or disparage these tribes who made such requests. For it is the activities of these beings, small, large, or gigantic, that made it possible to have the earth, that made it possible to have the so-called heavens, that made it possible to have the oceans, that made it possible to ensure the body of man, which man uses, that he needs on earth, came into existence.
Thank you so much for your answer, Gregory, and explanation there. Again, you're building the picture for us to see the wider picture that we probably haven't appreciated about the activity of the nature beings and how they work. I mean, so many questions coming out for me. Okay, I'll just go. It might seem a bit random, but I will just say it. Because we gave the example of the Red Indians calling or doing a rain dance or calling on the nature being to help with the rain, you can say. And we know in, let's say, from the history of these ancient peoples and so on, the people, Romans, Greeks, whatever, it doesn't matter which part of the world it was, they actually worshipped these, let's put them gods with a little g, or these nature beings. I want to ask Gregory, does it, when the people worship those nature gods or nature beings, first of all, is that right? And I have a secondary follow-up question. Were they not aware of the Almighty who is like the real ultimate creator, you know. So when they are worshipping these beings, nature beings, why are they doing that? And is it because they are not aware of the Almighty Creator?
Again, one must thank you for bringing up those questions. In the meantime, very briefly, put them aside. Here on earth, human personalities have printed paper, and they call it money, and they worship money in different formats. Are they not aware that this is paper? That is one. Here on earth, you have human personalities who take so-called metals, be it gold, silver, whatever you care to call it, because it radiates. They attach themselves to it. These are the things they use in decorating themselves, and they worship these things. Are they not aware that these are only objects? What the personality must realize is that the inner core of man is of spirit. And that being of spirit, it starts its experiencing. It starts as an unconscious germ. And in the process of experiencing in different parts outside its home, which home is referred to as the paradise of man, the events there are so stupendous and fast. Because of that, is unable to internalize the fastness. It therefore needed to go far away to places where gradually it will come first to consciousness before again slowly becomes self-conscious. In the process of getting to consciousness, it assumes the form, the structural form of man that we have. And that being the case, in the second step, it is now looking into, in a gradual process, that which had been sown into it, now making them awaken in order to become self-conscious. That means to awaken these talents to the realization of what it could do when it subjects itself to the will of the Almighty and also to the love of the Almighty. This process is gradual. So at the beginning, when it is moving from the steps of consciousness, or one may refer to as lack of consciousness, to consciousness and self-consciousness, at the beginning, it's able to perceive what is nearest to it and is able to perceive of the activities. Which activities he himself or herself could not really participate and therefore looked at those who were masters in these activities at these low levels as helpers. And as it matures, it came into contact with the massive beings of nature, those who are responsible for the earth, gigantic they are, and are able to move the earth in quakes, able to build. Same thing of the sea. For some of them, they are in awe of these beings, and in respect, they bowed their head to these beings, because they had not come to a better realization of what the activities of these beings are. But as they matured, they were able to see in their maturity. By maturity, one is referring to as spiritual maturity, not intellectual maturity. In their spiritual maturity, they could see a little higher and could not only see these gnomes, these beings that walk with fire, the salamanders, or that walk in the flowers, in the fields and in the ocean, in the rivers. They saw the masters of those beings. It was these rulers that they perceived. Some of them cooled in their openness and maturity, approached them, these rulers. Therefore, you hear the likes of Olympus, Valhalla. These beings have been there, and these beings swing unconditionally in the will, the wisdom of the Almighty. But these beings are tied to nature. By nature, one is referring to the world of matter and those who walk in the world of matter. That is, those animistic beings, which one may refer to as the elemental beings, but to use the general name where beings are at work, one will call them substantiate beings. Hence, at the beginning, one mentioned this work is in the light of truth, of the light of substantiality, of forms, of structural forms, and of truth. Of truth, which truth is the law, and also the will or the wisdom of the Almighty that made creation come into being. Creation is a being because he said creation came into being. Creation also follows these laws of creation or of divine laws. Creation, when looked at from that sphere where we have the laws of the elementals, downwards to the world of matter, where these elementals activate these matter. That is what is referred to basically as nature. So nature does not exceed that. In creation, the other division, or better said, the other categories, the other structural forms are above that which is elemental, and therefore above nature, are the spiritual, are also of divine. These are structures that are and exist. These structures came before man was permitted to sink down into this realm of the world of matter as spirit gems.
Thank you, Gregory, again for your answer and explanation. Every question we're getting deeper into this world of nature beings. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to Bless Radio. We are broadcasting on blessradio1.com. That's blessradio1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the nature beings. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows as well. And also, we're broadcasting on zeno.fm /Bless Radio 1. I'll spell that. Zeno, ZENO.FM /Bless Radio 1, the number 1. And as I mentioned already, the topic we are discussing tonight is the nature beings. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, we've been talking about the nature beings, working in the, you could say, the building and maintenance of this creation that we live in. And you mentioned also earlier, the building, and they do also destruction as well, dissolution. And what I want to ask Gregory, in these, sometimes when we hear about the stories of mythology, there is a good fight between good and evil. And I wanted to check with you, are there good nature beings and evil nature beings which are fighting as well?
The nature beings one refers to are those who stand unconditionally in the will of their creator or in the will of the Creator, which will is the wisdom of the Lord Almighty. Therefore, the nature beings which the Lord Almighty permitted to come into existence in support of nature, in support of creation, must follow the rules that has been put in place. Only in such a manner can they continue to exist, since that which the Almighty granted to come into existence is good, they, the nature beings, must be good. What has been observed is that human personality, they themselves have, within their free will, made errors, which errors they continually perpetuate, and therefore have brought evil into this path of creation, which is basically the world of matter. Therefore, one cannot say, oh, nature beings, are they evil? They work unconditionally, following the directive that has been given to them. What one may say, or what one can observe, is that it is the nature beings who are involved in, according to the will of their Almighty, or of the Almighty, who bring the union of the different substances to build up, to grow, to maintain, and to dissolve when those structures have now outlived their purpose. And that is why you have, like here on Earth, you have a plant. The plant doesn't stay forever. You have the human personality you have with the physical body. It doesn't last forever. And that moves one to the second part of nature, which one needs to discuss. Before the human personality, the inner core of man, which is referred to as spirit, came here in the world of matter. It was, or it is, the nature beings who made the preparations in the planning, for instance, of the earth. All the smallest details, only through them, in their tireless work, were they able to prepare this realm of the earth before the human personality could incarnate. In the process of incarnation, before the human personality, without the physical body, that human personality is referred to as the soul. Before incarnation, that human personality spins threads. That means they have a line of activity in their requests and thoughts. In that particular process, the elementals, these nature beings, small as they are, they build the body, the non-physical body, that acts as a template that act as a model only at the time of incarnation, at the middle of pregnancy, do we have that the human personality taking over the physical body which was being built in the mother's womb. It is the nature beings who build these ethereal bodies, which then resonate. Some people who have seen these counterparts, they call it the astral bodies. And what they have built, you will find that everything you have on earth has a counterpart, which acts like a model. Only then, from that point, can you then have the physical reality. This is factual. This is real. After some time, when the human personality has experienced, after some years, which could be from a few seconds to years to maybe hundreds of years, the human personality departs. Again, it is these nature beings who help in severing the threads which had been spun, in severing the threads in accordance to the will of the Almighty. So one can see the helpfulness to man at the beginning in incarnation into this earth, and then in the process you refer to as death, the severance. The nature beings are always there. That is not even enough. The last discussion we had, there was the discussion about the thoughts of man, the thoughts generated by the intellect. There are also, on the other hand, the intuitive thoughts. These processes spin threads. Again, it is these elementals, which elementals are nature beings, who pick up these threads and help in knotting them. So it is these nature beings who help in the formation of the entanglement man has given into creation. Hence, when the time comes in a reincarnation, that's which the human personality has prepared for itself for future, it is now forced to experience it here or hereafter. So, as one can already perceive the vast amount of work these dedicated beings in nature, the vast amount of work which they carry out in loyalty, in faithfulness to the will of the Almighty, without complaint. That is how the human spirit has an effect on them. So, for many who now come to recognition, they should bow down in the wisdom that had prepared that which man needs in order to become self-conscious in accordance with the light and also with truth.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer and explanation. Again, widening our picture uh, of the activity of these nature beings, which is really quite massive, unimaginable, really. Um, they're working before we are here on the earth. They're working while we are here on the earth. They're working while after we leave this earth. Uh, they build this creation. I mean, uh, you wonder how hardly anybody knows about it. And then the early man, ancient people seem to, well, they may not have had science, but they seem to know something, uh, even if we call it myth today, they seem to have some connection with them and work with them closely. But now it seems the knowledge has all disappeared. How how could that happen, Gregory? We've had teachings, you know, many religions. The Romans and Greeks and all these early teachings seem to have disappeared now. I think we still have the Hindu faith, and which believes in many such gods, they call them, or nature beings, as we are talking about today. How is it that is it that the religions that came afterwards, Gregory, they wiped out the knowledge because they said, "Oh, this is not this is fiction. This is not true." Even not fiction is not the word they would use. They would just say that's not even true, and they wiped all that away to say that it's just the one Almighty Creator, and He created everything.
One thing one must realize: whatever ability, whatever knowledge one has, if that personality does not use that knowledge vigorously, that is filled with vigor, in all the activities he is engaged with or engaged in, before long or before too long, that there will be a diminished aspect of that knowledge due to lack of use. For a very simple, consider yourself learning a language. If you don't use the language on a daily basis, or you only use the language once in a while, before long, you will lose command of the language. Whereas for one who engages with that language on a daily basis, he or she will go deeper and deeper into the language. And therefore, we have the command of the language. We know how to express himself in that language. So it is. When you have that the human personality not relying on its intuition again and again in all the challenges that it comes across, when the intuition doesn't play that strong role, the intuition supplying the power, showing the direction that must be taken, and the intellect being the executive director, then you then have a scenario where when the intuition is cut off, the intellect has to rely on itself. The intellect only knows what appertains to the limited concepts of space, of substantiality which is concerned with it, of time, and the realities that are tied with it. it cannot go further. Whereas that which is of the intuition goes much, much further. It transcends much further. And that which has a universal picture, that which has a global picture, can already foresee, has the deep insight on how things should be. And that is why we find the quagmire which many a personality or a nation runs into. Because that which is intuitive has been ignored, or only that which is highly intellectual has been engaged in.
Thank you, Gregory, for your, again, this picture and answer that you're giving. It shows how much understanding we need to have, how this activity of these nature beings work is so unappreciated and not understood. It's so vital. So thank you for bringing that out. Now, Gregory, we've talked about, the working with nature, or the help from nature we get, with regards, let's say, you could say our requests for help in terms of, climate and such things. But also, Gregory, there's something we used to call nature, old wives' tales, where basically, if we are ill or hurt ourselves, we could go to our, let's say, wise mother or father, giving us advice on the herbs and things that are available through the nature to heal us. And again, it seems that knowledge seems to have disappeared. And so, what I want to ask Gregory, really, the nature beings, obviously, they know what about nature automatically. And so, how did we get to communicate with the nature beings that we could have access to this help? Could we just speak like you and I speak, and they would respond? And I mean, it sounds crazy. They could speak to us in some way. How was it that we were able to communicate with these nature beings and request for help?
To provide an answer to that, one would say, first, consider the earthly languages. Consider the earthly language in which you can hear what is being said. Were someone to speak in another language other than English, say in Chinese, you would not understand that, yet you could hear the words. So it means one, first of all, may hear the words, yet do not understand. So to have an understanding, some words must have been internalized in the struggle to learn a particular language. The same thing goes when the human personality needs to interact with these nature beings. It is the human personality who, through experience, has to learn what impressions they put out, which impressions are perceptible to these nature beings. What is said is only for us to hear. Behind the words are, to a large extent, strong impressions. It is these impressions that these nature beings perceive intuitively. For the language of communication between the personality and the nature beings is that of intuition. So there is that language. What we refer to as language is structural communication. That means it goes, one gives out, it's being received. It means it's able to resonate, resonance of the intuition. That is the case. And being that being the case, depending on the perceptibility of the human personality, which human personality first must understand the structure through how he expresses himself, all the structures they have found in nature. They're able to communicate, ask for help. Of course, nature beings can already see, but you yourself must approach them. They have been there even before the human spirits came to the world of matter. They are still there, and they remain there in accordance with the will of their creator. So it is the human personality through their activities, which activities sometimes are expressions of sound which you and I can hear with our ears, or behind that, the intuition, that is the impression which strikes the intellect from the back brain and then activate these senses, and then you can perceive. It is the counterpart of that. It is that impression, that intuitive impression, which speaks the language through observations in nature, that is able to reach of these nature beings, and that is where man asks for help. The same thing goes with the so-called prayer. So, a personality that lacks intuition lacks everything. He or she may vegetate and does not mature at all. Here in the walk, in the light of truth, which is of light and of truth, the key intuitions in creation have been provided. It is now left for man to make use of it, to learn the language of creation, so as to be able to communicate with all that is in creation effectively.
Thank you again, Gregory, for this answer. And as you just mentioned, anyone who wishes to want to explore the Grail message or to get more information or get a copy for themselves, they can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And you're listening to Bless Radio. We are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's .com. So I'll spell that. Bless Radio, BLESS, Radio RADIO 1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1 space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of the show the next day. Also on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space Grail message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is the nature beings. And of course you can listen to our previous shows as well. And also you can listen to from another website, which is zeno.fm /Bless Radio 1. I'll spell that Zeno, ZENO .fm /Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1. And the topic we are discussing is the nature beings. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I've received a question from, I think it's a comment actually. Yes, it's a comment from a listener. It says, I find that Christians reject such beings and call such peoples who believe in the old gods, such as Thor, as pagans and therefore ungodly. So I'll repeat that. Listener made a comment. I find that Christians reject such beings and call such peoples who believe in the old gods, such as Thor, as pagans and therefore ungodly. Is there anything you'd like to say in response to that, Gregory?
The question itself turns out to be more of a self-contradiction. They are talking about beliefs, whereas what is being discussed here are realities. People may talk about things which they believe in. Here, we talk about thoughts. Thoughts are realities. Thoughts have effect on us. Thoughts also have effect on others, depending on our inner disposition, our inner attitude. What people say is only based on what they have come to know or do not know. So when it is said Christians, question would then be, and who is the Christian? Is it those who shout at the top of the roof, calling Christ's name, who do not fulfill the will of the Lord Almighty? Or those beings who have been graciously allowed to come into being to help in the fulfillment of the will of the Lord Almighty, in order that man may move from that state of being a spirit gem of unconsciousness, true consciousness, to becoming self-conscious. Are those the beings that one rejects? Which beings have been placed there even before the human spirit came into the world of matter? Such a personality therefore denies, for that person lacks the conviction of the structure of creation. That person cannot lay hold to Christ himself, for he himself or herself lacks the knowledge. For in the Lord's Prayer, all that man needs has been granted. And when the Lord himself was in the boat with his disciples, who were afraid of the seas, all he had to do was speak to those who were responsible for the cleansing of the weather. That was sufficient, and everything became calm. That no one can deny. Yet, these nature beings that has been faithful, more faithful than man himself or herself, these nature beings are denied.
Thank you, Gregory, for this answer. Now, Gregory, you know, as we've mentioned many times, science seems to be considered to be the highest source of, I don't know, understanding life, or use, you know, to, let's say, to practice living our life. And as we have said, the knowledge of the nature beings and their activities basically gone away, disappeared into some, you could say, the back of our minds. I would like to ask now, is it possible to ask them for help in the present time with this? You know, I mean, so many issues are happening on this earth, which we know about, environmental issues. Yes, yeah, basically could say the future of the planet even, which we know what we have heard so far, we know these nature beings built it and maintain it. And we human beings trying to save our own planet, and it's looking very, let's say, shaky if we can do anything to save it, really. Is there a way we could ask assistance from the nature beings in our current state of, the state of humanity today?
Suppose, to look from so-called scientific point of view, people or governments, let's say governments, when they will never agree. You are able to perceive the nature beings and say, we need some help. And the nature beings say, okay, stop burning all these fossil fuels. What do you think the answer will be? So first is, okay, let us prepare ourselves. Man knows what he should do, but he refuses to do it. It is not the nature beings who will perish. It is man who will perish if he doesn't adjust his or her ways. So the question remains, is it possible Of course it is possible. But to ask of them, the need is there first to understand the language which the nature beings speak in nature. First, understand their language before you ask. Imagine you want to ask for someone who speaks a foreign language. You are speaking English, yet he's speaking Japanese or Chinese. How do you then communicate? No way. But man that needs help first need to understand the language of nature. In order to understand this language of nature, the impression which nature returns to the human personality, they walk in the light of truth. The work which talks of light, which light, one has stressed, is substantiality, which light is used in building up structural forms, and of truth, of which is wisdom. Of this light, which one also refers to as substantiality, and which other expression can be used, this light is love itself. Of the personification of divine light stand Christ. And of the truth, of the wisdom, which wisdom rules the world, which wisdom rules creation, of the personification of divine truth stands Emmanuel.
Thank you for the explanation again, Gregory. I want to go into the nature of the nature beings. You mentioned about their activity and so on, and I'm just thinking, okay, let's just first go back to the, the ancient people's sort of knowledge, or the words they use, let's say. So we call them, Gregory, fairy stories, and those characters in those stories, elves and so on. We still hear them in a way in our cartoons. So are those, and we know they're also, Gregory, just going into it, all these, like say, Greek, Romans, and whatever the peoples were in those days, they had, let's say, hundreds of so-called we call gods with a little g, or elemental beings, as we've also referred to them as nature beings. Hundreds of them, or even thousands. So I'm just going to start with this one as a first part of the question, Gregory. So are angels also nature beings? We hear of them in the Bible and other teachings. So are angels are they also nature beings, or are they different species?
Angels are not nature beings. Although angels belong to that class, which one may refer to, not class, of that category, of that kind, of that type, in harems, which also belong to substantiality. Just as the nature beings have their activities in the world of matter, so also angels have their activities in the spiritual and the divine realm. For they are the ones who are responsible for the upkeep of these realms.
Thank you. And so, um, let's see. I'm just going to go through my list of definitions, looking at the you could say like type of what are these nature beings. So animals, they are from nature, but we don't seem to call them nature beings somehow. So are they nature beings or are they something else? The animals?
The animals are not nature beings. For the nature beings, we do not see them. Neither do we call man nature being.
Yes, true. You made a point there, Gregory. We do not see.
Otherwise, you will be talking of plants as nature beings or something, and all that. That is not the case. Man is not a nature being. Man is of spirit, but whilst here in nature, requires the human body, particularly on earth, to be able to participate in activities. Otherwise, it's unable to do so. So the stranger that had left one realm to experience here, when it finishes, it goes back to where he or she belongs, either consciously or unconsciously. Or by that one means either self-conscious or goes back as a gem in which the human structure, the human personality will not exist, to be as it has left. So one cannot refer to the human personality in nature as a nature being. However, those entities, when we call them entities, that are responsible, directly responsible for the maintenance of this world of matter, which world of matter does not exist forever, but grows, all right? Precipitate, grows, is built up, it comes to a climax, and it goes through dissolution and then starts all over again. That process continues forever. Those who are in nature or in this world of matter and help with this particular activity are what one refers to as nature beings. That means they are beings, they exist to carry out unconditionally the will that's of the Almighty.
Thank you, Gregory. You mentioned that these nature beings are invisible. However, again, going back to the stories or myths of the ancient peoples, we know that they made statues of these gods or little gods, we can call them, or nature beings. So it means they had some idea what they look like. Were they able to see them? And if so, how did they see them? If they're not physically visible, how could they see them? And, well, some people call it idols. They created their statues of these nature beings. How did they manage to do that?
The artist is able to perceive through their intuition forms. It is these forms, for many who are open to it, it is these forms they are able to perceive and therefore give that form a structure. Which structure, like photographs that you now see nowadays. It doesn't mean that they have seen these bodies with their physical eye, but they have perceived these bodies, with their intuitive, in quotes, eye, they're able to perceive of them, of their fastness, and also some are able to perceive of even the gnomes, because they are closer to us in their densification. They are also the water sprites. They are responsible for the maintenance of water. Look at the ocean. All right, look at the pollution man has done. But these nature beings keep purifying the weather. The more man has polluted, then the more they have to work hard to make sure they purify the weather. In the process of purification, you now have this cataclysmic weather pattern. Then man should ask himself how it came about. So these nature beings, they are always there. They have always been there because this is their domain of activity as outlined in the will of the Almighty. Man is only a guest in the world of matter. A guest granted a place such that it will mature. He himself will approach these nature beings through the radiations which he himself gives out. If these radiations are of support, then the nature beings in reciprocity will support man. But nowadays, one can only imagine the wicked thoughts that stream from man. And then, is it then surprising why we have what we have? The so-called, these diseases which keep going around, decimating people. It is not the work of the nature beings. It is the work of man.
Thank you. I just want to explore that, what you said, the last, Gregory, about the diseases going around, which are the work of man, not the work of nature beings. How is that happening? Is it, let's say, because of man's evil activity or damaging activities, they are formed into diseases? Is it like this? I just want to get a picture how it can be that, let's say, the physical activity, although diseases can be physical too, but how is it connected through our the work of man? How is that connected with diseases?
Well, when one refers to a disease, it tells very clearly how something has precipitated some outgrowths which has been precipitated in a different place. Look at the so-called HIV. Therefore, it must be that man has ventured into certain areas in such a way as to have triggered or precipitated such diseases to come into being. For even in breathing or in the carrying of diseases, it's like a vector. That means one picks it up and takes it to another place. Whether one is aware of it or not, it's immaterial. The same thing happened with other diseases. It is through the work of man. Otherwise, these things would not have jumped from one species to the other. It is man who will not show respect to himself, but we wish to interact with other species without taking the necessary precautions. And therefore, when there is a jump, when you have that a particular parasite leaving one species where it was inactive and jumping to another one where it now becomes active, it must be it is man that has provided that channel. So ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Thank you so much, Gregory. We've come to the end of the show, listeners, and I'd like to finish with the foreword of the Grail message, which is titled, For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth, and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. At the moment, he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent. He is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Aprushi. Dear listeners, that was a foreword of the Grail message, which you can read for yourself if you want to go to this website, or get a copy of the Grail message for yourself by going to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing them a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Dear listeners, I also wish you a great week ahead, and blessings. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic. Good night. All the best.